This is Pete, or Kenshin1913, along with...
The sis, Monica.
And this is another Cooking with Kenshin1913. What are we making today?
Today we're making a no-boil macaroni and cheese in the crock pot. This is the easiest recipe you're ever going to find. I bought San Giorgio macaroni, but you can use any Elbow macaroni. I suggest using Elbow macaroni just because it's going to cook the same way every time you make it. If you do decide to switch to a different pasta noodle, you just have to monitor the cooking. We are doubling this recipe today, but in the video, in the description, Pete will give you all of the ingredients for 1 pound, and it is easy to double it. Right. So we're going to start with Elbow macaroni. Evaporated milk. I like to use the whole milk when I'm making this just because it makes it a little more creamy. You've got paprika, any type of salt that you want. We're using the Himalayan salt today. And ground pepper. White or black is fine. Stick of butter. I like to keep it at room temperature just because you're going to slice it and quickly go. We've got Velveeta. Now this is one of those ingredients that really holds this dish together because it creates the creaminess. The pasta is going to suck up all of the milk as the liquid since it's a no boil. So to really get that creaminess that you would get if you were to make a roux, if you were baking it in the oven, you can use Velveeta. For those people who do not like Velveeta or cannot get Velveeta, you can use cream cheese as a substitute. We've got white cheddar, yellow cheddar, and a cheddar Colby mix. So we're just going to dump the pasta right into the crock pot.
Yeah, we've had this recipe a few times, Monica's it's very good. Oh yeah, you're gonna.
And again, you can use different cheeses. You don't have to stick with the cheddars if you're not a fan of cheddar. I do recommend using at least one type of cheddar, even if it's mild, just because you want to get that flavor. But you can use, you had it with Pepper Jack, and it's very, very good because it gets that little kick. So any type of cheese, always though buy block cheese and shred yourself. If you use pre-shredded cheese, it does not melt well because they put an additive in it. You're going to use about a half a stick of butter.
Yeah, I believe they put potato starch.
And you just cube your butter and put it right on top of the pasta.
Yeah, you could probably use those cool swirly pastas too. That would be good.
You just have to watch the time, and like everyone's crock pot cooks differently, so you want to make sure that you check it. This isn't something that you can just put in the crock pot, leave, and not go back and look at it. You have to keep an eye on it because you're gonna have to stir it once halfway through. But depending on the noodle that you use, you want to make sure that you don't overcook or undercook it. Then what you're going to do is you're just going to kind of dump in all this cheese. So I'm going to start with the Velveeta just because that's in cubes.
Yeah, I can see why you're going to have to mix it just to make sure that everything's getting
incorporated together.
This is the
white cheddar,
which is a little milder, right?
No, this is actually it's a sharp one. I bought they had on sale a reserved cheddar by Cracker Barrel, so I wanted to see what it tasted like. This is more of a milder yellow cheddar.
Yeah. And if you're lactose intolerant, you might want to skip this recipe.
There's a lot of cheese in this recipe.
Yeah, it's very cheesy. It's very good though.
And then we'll end with the Monterey.
Yeah, and the Velveeta is kind of like American cheese in the essence of like it melts and like coagulates very well, unlike other cheeses. Like if you just
and it helps bring out the creaminess. If you were to make it without the Velveeta and just use the shredded cheeses, it kind of gets like a grainy texture because it doesn't come together. When you do a baked macaroni and cheese, you make a roux, and that's what helps hold the creaminess of the cheese. If you're making it in the crock pot, you have to use something that's going to hold that creaminess. So either the Velveeta or cream cheese will work in that case. So now we're gonna make our milk mixture. So I'm putting in the evaporated milk first.
Yeah. And again, she is doubling this recipe, so I will have the ingredients for one in the video description.
You're gonna use your regular milk. You could use whole milk. You could use 1%. I've done it with both. I tend to like it a little bit better with whole. I would not use
Skim.
I would not use skim, and I would not use like a half and half or things like that. So that's 2. And I'm probably going to use this whole container. So in a 1 pound recipe, you would use 2.5 cups of milk, 1 can of evaporated milk. Here we're doubling it just because we're having a lot of guests tonight. So you're going to start with your pepper. And I just have to quickly... So it's a half a teaspoon of pepper. I'm using a teaspoon for this recipe.
And you could add extra spices.
Yes,
course.
you can add extra pepper.
If you want to get your mac and cheese a little spicy, obviously, you could add a little cayenne.
Add cayenne. You could add a little Cajun if you want some smoky heat to it. It all depends on your taste preference. Again, same thing like with the cheese. If you like a little kick, go ahead and use the pepper jacks and things like that they've got out. They actually have a great horseradish cheese that's made in the specialty cheese area. You could try that. That would probably be really good also.
All right, we're adding 2 teaspoons of salt now. Don't worry, it's not that much salt in comparison to how much we're making.
I'm gonna do a teaspoon of the paprika. I actually like to add just a tiny bit more.
Well,
so a generous teaspoon.
Right. Well, if you're using paprika, you could always use smoked paprika.
Yes. And then you're gonna just whisk this all together. And get it really incorporated. And then you're just going to take this mixture and pour it right over all of your pasta. All right, so we're going to take our milk mixture and we're just going to pour it over our pasta and cheese mixture.
And we were worried it wasn't going to fit. Boom!
And make sure that you scrape out all of that goodness at the bottom of your bowl. You don't want to leave all those spices at the bottom here. All right.
Now we're gonna set it. We're gonna put the cover on.
You're gonna put the cover on, but what you want to do before you put the cover on is you're gonna take your whisk and you're just gonna press. Make sure that the cheese is covered by this mixture. Because as that pasta starts to cook, you're going to start to see it's going to sink down a little. But you want to get as much of this in the pot. Just like that. You're going to cover it and you cook it for 2 to 3 hours. Definitely on high. Definitely set your timer because on the hour mark, you need to come in and you need to stir it.
Is that every hour or just the first hour?
The first hour. I would check it if you're, when I've made it before, it has cooked in 2 hours. Sometimes it'll take a little longer. So if you're doing a bigger recipe, it more than likely is going to take the 3 hours. So I would stir it an hour. Set your timer again for the second hour just to peek on it and see how it's doing. If it doesn't need to be stirred, then don't touch it. Just let it keep going. But you do want to test your pasta because you don't want to have overcooked pasta. It turns to mush. So our hour has been up. And see how the cheese got really gooey. So we're going to come in here and we're going to stir. And you really want to get to the bottom of that crock pot because you want to bring some of that pasta right on up and get that cheese incorporated in.
Yeah, also you don't want it to stick to the bottom either.
No.
So now you looking at this and being a pro at making
This is probably going to take the full 3 hours on high. It actually might take a little bit longer just because we've doubled it.
But also, would you come stir it for the next hour, you think?
I would stir it in the next hour.
All right, so we'll come back, we'll stir it in the next hour.
And see how the pasta looks. This is really going to be your judge. Again, if you're only making the one batch, you're only doing the one thing, I would stir it now. You're going to see your pasta's going to be a little bit not quite as firm. And then you would want to check back at that hour because it could take anywhere between 2 and 3 hours to cook in the crock pot. So, this is what we have after 2.5 hours of cooking in the crock pot. This is exactly what you want it to look like.
Yeah, let's see the creaminess of this
It's
thing.
creamy. It's not grainy.
Lactose.
The pasta is not mush.
Yeah.
If your pasta gets to be mushy, it starts. You'll see it. It'll start to fall apart. So this is actually perfect.
Yeah, so let's eat it. All right, here is our slow cooker mac and cheese. Let's give it a try here. Let's see. The macaroni is nice.
Yep, beautiful.
Creamy. Not cheesy enough though. No,
Not
that's
cheesy
good.
enough.
That's good.
I'm glad that we used that aged white cheddar because
Yeah.
you really get that tanginess.
Yeah, it's
out
very
of
good.
that.
It's very good.
This really came good, this recipe.
Honestly, you can't go wrong with this. You just put it in, you stir it once or twice, that's about it. So, I have MP, or Kenshin1913, along with,
Sis, Monica,
and this has been another Cooking with Kenshin1913.
happy eating.